Hi everyone, today in this video I'm going to be covering quadratic equations. What I've done, I've lined up a few quadratic equations, and what I'm going to do is just keep it really nice and simple, break the steps down. Hopefully everyone will be able to follow, and it's going to be made real easy. So let's get straight into the video. What I first want to mention is when we're dealing with a quadratic equation, we want to get it in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So you might have seen that before, and what it looks like is this. So that's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now that is really important to follow. So what does a, b and c mean here? These are the coefficients and they're real important, and I'll explain why with an example. So if we have a really simple example of x squared plus 5x plus 4 equals 0. If I said to you, what are the coefficients in this quadratic equation? By looking at the general form above, a has to be with the x squared term, b needs to be with the x term, and c is an isolated integer. So with this equation, what are the coefficients a, b and c? So why don't you just take a moment to have a think, pause the video, and then we can discuss this in a few moments. So if you've had a chance to go through that, what is the coefficients a, b and c? And that's a key step in solving this quadratic equation to find the roots. Now you may think, oh, there's nothing before the x squared term, it must be 0. Well, that's incorrect. What this x squared can be rewritten as, or if we just do it on the side, that is the same as writing 1x squared. Now we don't often write 1x squared, we just write x squared because it's an isolated value, or it's an isolated variable. Now that x squared is the same as just that 1x squared, so that coefficient is 1. Now that 5 is the same as this bx term, so that 5x is bx, so that coefficient b must be 5. Now this isolated value of 4 must relate to this coefficient c, so c must be equal to 4. Now why is that important? So firstly, we've got the coefficients. We must write it in this format of x squared plus 5x plus 4, so having the x squared term first, followed by the x term, and then the integers. So we can see with the powers, they are reducing, they are decreasing as we go along this equation. And the reason why we want to do that is because it's just nice and easy to follow as we go along the steps. So what we want to do with this equation, so we've got these three terms, what we want to do is take this middle value, so it's always the middle value, this x term, and we want to split it into two terms, and where those two numbers come from is key with these coefficients. We want those two numbers to be linked to a times c, and then when you add them, they must equal to b. So you want two numbers, so once you times them, equal to your a times c, so that's your 1 times 4 equals 4, and then we know our b value equals 5. So the question is, what two numbers, when you times them, equal to 4, but when you add them, equal to 5? So if you think about simple your times tables, you've got 1 times 4 equals 4, and then when you add it, 1 plus 4 equals 5. So you know you've got a positive 1 and a positive 4. So what does that mean? Like I said, we want to rearrange, or not rearrange, sorry, we want to replace this 5x term with two x terms. The reason why it's x, because this 5x must still be equal to the original. So if we just draw two separate lines, we've identified the two values are 1 and 4, so we're going to put down a 1 and a 4, but it must equal to this 5x. So how do we do that? So we put an x term here and a next term here. It's always going to be a next term regardless of what numbers you put in. So 1x plus 4x must equal to 5. So we know that's a plus. 4 plus 1 equals 5. And what we do is just we just fill in the remaining of the equation. So we've got an x squared term at the front. Again, it's a plus because it's plus 5x, so 1x plus 4x equals 5x. And we just bring the 4 back down, which is just the isolated positive 4 equals 0. Now, we have 4 terms. So we started with 3, and now we've got 4. This is where we want to do the key trick. We always want to split this equation into 2 parts. So you get the first 2 terms, which is x squared plus the 1x. That's your first part. You always split it before the next sign because this sign belongs to this term. So you've got positive 4x plus 4. Here's a trick. We want to now factorize this equation. By factorizing, we want to take out the common variables. So we must have it in this form. So always get your 2 brackets and write it like this. Whatever is in this first bracket must always be equal to the second bracket. So we just copy and paste it into this bracket. So looking at this first segment, or this first part, we've got x squared plus x. What's the common factor? It's going to be x, right? It's just a single x. That's the only common factor we have in this part. So what multiplies with x to get x squared? Well, that's just going to be another x, right? So x times x is x squared. And then you've got the single x. So you've already got x before the bracket. So we know x times something must equal x. So x multiplied by 1 has to be x. So that's just a positive 1. So if you expand that out, you get x squared plus x. Exactly the same as this first part. Now remember, I said whatever is in this part must be in the second bracket. So as we know it must be the same, we can just write it in the same. And here's where we can do a verification check. We take this x plus 1 and it must equal to this 4x plus 4. So we must find the common factor between this and that. So we just take the first term, we've got x and we've got 4. So what is the common factor that differentiates this? Well, it's going to be a factor of 4. So we've got 4 times x equals 4x. And then we can know it's a positive from this sign here. So we've put a positive 4, but if we expand it up to the second term, we've got a positive 4 again. It's the same as the line above. So what does this mean? So again, we continue this through, and we then rewrite this. We want 2 sets of brackets. We've got one here, which is x plus 1, and it's the same. And then the other one is this single isolated x plus this other isolated plus 4. So we bring that as the second bracket. So that's x plus 4 and then x plus 1. So we've just grouped the x and the plus 4 down here, and then we've taken the common factor of x plus 1 down here, and that must be equal to 0. So now we want to find the roots. This is really simple. So all you have to do is take your first bracket, so it's the x plus 4. You look at this number, you will say x equals, whatever's this number here, 4, always divide by the coefficient of x. So here x is just 1, but it must always be opposite to this sign. So that's a negative 4. And you can do your verification check. So x plus 4, if you take this bracket only, it must equal to 0. So if I said to you, you've got an empty box, something gets added by plus 4 and it must be equal to 0. Well, intuitively, you know that has to be minus 4 because you minus 4 on the other side. So that box must be minus 4. And that's exactly what x is here. It is the same as this. So what is the other root? So we've got the same thing, x plus 1 must equal to 0. So intuitively, something plus 1 must equal to 0. If you take 1 away from the other side, x must be equal to minus 1. But again, say we had a different, more complexity, all we do is just take that number first, we put it here, we always do a divide sign, and we always divide by the coefficient. Again here, x is the same as 1x, so we just put it in the denominator value. We take the opposite sign, which is minus. So we just rearrange that as clean it up, x equals minus 4, or we got x equals minus 1. So that's your two roots. What I'm going to do now is chuck in another question, and I need to take a moment to pause the video and have a go yourself. So what I do is I'll clean the screen up. I will then now add a second equation. So the second equation, we can add a little bit more complexity to it. We've got 3x squared plus 7x plus 4 equals 0. So pause the video and take a moment to have a go. So welcome back if you've had a go. What I'm going to do again is just keep it real nice and simple, break the steps down as much as possible. So first of all, we want to get in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So as you can see, we need to determine what are the coefficients of the x squared term, the x squared, and the integer c. First of all, have we got the equation in the exact same format? We've got x squared term first, second x, and then the integer. Yes, it is in decreasing order, and it is the same as the equation above. So we know that a is 3. We've got b equals to a positive 7, and then we know that c equals to 4. So with that, what do we want to do again? We want to take always that middle value, which is the single x term. So it's always the x term. We want to break it down into two x terms, always x, because it's, it is an x, so two x's must always equal to that ultimate 7x. So what are the two numbers? Like we said, the two numbers, when you times it, must equal to a times c. So a times c here is 3 times 4, which is 12, and we got the b term of 7. So two numbers, when you times it, equals 12, but when you add them, they must equal positive 7. So what are our times here? We got 12, we got 6 and 2. Well, positive 6, positive 2, that equals 12, but when you add them, it equals positive 8. So if you reverse the signs, again, you're not going to get that positive 7. So what else is there? There's 4 and 3. So when you times it, 4 times 3, that equals 12. And when you add them, that equals 7. So that 7x can now be split into 4x and 3x. Like I said, it must equal that 7, so that's a positive. And we just fill in the remaining parts of the equation. So that's positive 3x squared plus 4 equals 0. So what do we do again? We always split it after the first two terms. So we've got 4 terms, 3x squared, 4x, 3x, and 4. We always split it after the second term. So just draw your line. Always, remember, always before that next sign change, the third sign change, because that third sign, it belongs to the third value. So we've got positive 3x squared plus 4x as a first segment. So what's the common variable there, or common factor? We got x. Now 3 and 4 don't have a common multiple, so that's just going to be x. What multiplies by x to give you 3x squared? Well, you're missing a 3 and an x, so 3x times x equals 3x squared. and the remaining, which is the positive 4x, has to be multiplied by 4 to get 4x. So can you see that? So if we multiply that out, we get x times 3x there, and then we've got plus 4x. So if we clean that up, that's 3x squared plus 4x. Exactly what is written in the first segment. So what I'm just going to do quickly is just delete that last bit here. Oops, just use a eraser. We'll get it back to here. So now we're going to look at the second segment. Remember, it must have the same middle bracket. So without looking at the common factor, we can just add that in, which we know it's 3x plus 4. But as a verification check, when we times it, it must equal that. So, well, hang on a minute. That's already 3x plus 4. So what's the common multiple before it? Well, if we've already got it, that itself 3x plus 4. So if we write that out, 3x plus 4, as a, put it in a box, times it by something else, random question mark, has to equal 3x plus 4. Well, we've already got it, so that box in itself must just be 1. So it times itself, or would equal 3x plus 4. So that here must be a positive 1, because it's a positive 3x plus 4. And just take a quick second to clean that up. And now we know, again, this is all equal to 0. So we now factorize it with our two brackets. We know one of the brackets, as we have in common, is 3x plus 4. The other one is just cleaning up all the terms outside the bracket. So we've got x, and then we've got the positive 1. And that, again, all equals 0. So what are our roots? X equals, we take the sign here, take the number here, which is the positive 4. We divide it by whatever is the coefficient before x. So in this case, we've got 3. But remember, this sign in the middle is a positive, so this must be a negative. And then the other root, x equals a 1 divided by a 1, and it's a negative. We'll just clean it up. X equals a negative 4 over 3, and your second root equals a negative 1. So hopefully that made sense. But just as the last one, what we'll do another one, just to sort of drill it in and make it really, really simple. So hopefully, if you've not had a chance to do it yourself yet, maybe we'll take a time just to do the last one, and hopefully that will be a lot easier. So as the last one, what we'll do is 2x squared minus 11x plus 14. So we've sort of gone a little bit more trickier with adding higher magnitudes of numbers. So hopefully we'll only just take a moment to pause the video, and we'll resume from there. So welcome back if you've had a go. Again, first steps, let's write the quadratic equation down. Remember, no matter how much you know it, it's always easier just to see it. So that's ax squared, sorry, plus your bx plus your c equals 0. First of all, have we got it in the descending order? We've got an x squared term, we've got the 11x, we've got the 14. Yes, we do. Brilliant. Now, what are our coefficients a, b, and c? A equals a positive 2, as we can see here. Our b term equals negative 11. Remember, look at that sign. That sign belongs to that x term. And c equals a positive 14. So what's the next step? Always that single x value. We want to break it down into two x values. And what are the two x values? Two numbers, when you times them, must equal a times c, but when you add them, must equal just b. So a times c. So we got 2 times 14, which we know is positive 28, and our b term is negative 11. So two numbers when we times them equals 28, but when we add them equals minus 11. So we've got 14 and 2. So when we times them equals 28, but when we add them equals 16. We can have a minus 2, but then that would equal to 14 times minus 2 is minus 28, and that would be positive 14 plus minus 2, which is positive 12. So that again doesn't work. So what are the common variables? We've got 2, 3 does not go into 28, 4 does go into 28 by 7 times, so we've got 4 and 7. So 28, so when you times it, 4 times 7 does equals 28. When we add them, that equals positive 11. So as it equals positive 11, we know that if we do minus 4 times minus 7, that equals positive 28 as the signs cancel through. And when you add minus 4 plus minus 7, that equals minus 11. So we know our two numbers are minus 4x and minus 7x. So what we just do, as we can confirm, minus 4x minus 7x does equal minus 11x. We just fill in the remaining parts. So we've got a positive 2x squared and a positive 14. What do we do now? Again, we just split it right after the two parts, just before the third sign. So we've got, now we need to look at the common factors. So here, 2 and 4 have a common factor of 2. So we can well, firstly do our brackets, common brackets, and that must equal to 0. So we've got 2. What else is in common? We've got x, which is in common, as it's got an x squared term and an x, but that's about it. So 2x multiplied by something must equal 2x squared. So it's just missing an x value. And then we've got 2x multiplied by something must equal minus 4. Well, 2 times 2 equals 4, and it's a negative, so it's missing a negative 2. So that's minus 4x. Again, copy and paste the middle bracket, and now you say you've got an x to begin with, but it must equal this minus 7 term. So what is it? The common factor is going to be a minus 7. Oh, apologies for the bad handwriting. A minus 7. So you've got minus 7x, and then when you times it on the other side, you've got minus 7 times minus 2, which is a positive 14, as the signs cancel through. Brilliant. So what we do now, we just clean up by getting our two brackets, which is our x minus 2, common, and then we clean up everything outside the brackets, which is 2x minus 7. So it's 2x minus 7 equals 0. Again, our roots are going to be x equals 2 over nothing in between, 1. Sorry, nothing in front of the x, and in between we have a negative sign change, which is going to be a positive here. And then the second one is going to be x equals a 7 divided by the 2, which is the coefficient in front of the x, and we just take the opposite sign, which is a positive. So we got x equals a positive 2, and we've got x equals positive 7 over 2. So hopefully guys, that's made a lot of sense to you. What I'll do is add a bit more complexity as we go on for the next few videos, so keep an eye on those, and please do subscribe and like this video, and leave a few comments if you've not understood anything or would like to see some sort of other video. Thank you very much.